What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Crunch Time, sponsored by Fanduel. You know the drill. Bringing in two of the sharpest minds in the biz, taking you up to lock. And if you keep the questions coming, maybe even a little bit through lock here, you got to keep it interesting, though. If it gets boring, we're bouncing out of here. But nothing boring about these two. We got my guy Squirrel Patrol in the house. What up, Squirrel? How you doing?
Yeah, not much. Just had some pretty big injury news just break with Brandon Ingram being out again. So that solves some of the pieces to the puzzle, but still some pieces to be resolved as the night goes on.
Okay. And what? It's a 4-game slate, right? So these pieces like that matters massively. It's not like there's huge pivots elsewhere.
Yeah, so it sets up pretty nicely because there's one game at 7, one at 8, one at 9, one at 10, all Eastern time. So I think we got everything we need for the first game. Still waiting on a little bit for the second game. Third game, no injury news, hopefully, unless something totally unexpected happens. And then last game of the night, Devin Booker may or may not return.
Okay, so fair to say, we bring Kyle as well. Kyle Murray, which, by the way, I just saw this is your first NBA show with RotoGrinders since 2020. Is that for real?
It is, yeah. I'm excited to be back talking some hoops on the RotoGrinders channel again. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Catching up with you guys as well. Excited.
Yeah. Did you just win all the money in 2020 and you're like, I can't give out the winners anymore. I got to take a break. What happened there? You do projections with us, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, a little brief stint at some other sites, but happy to be back now and talking some hoops here. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, thrilled to have you on. And I assume this is one of those slates here where if you just like set it and forget it, like I like to do, you're screwed and you're not making any money. Is that fair?
I feel like that's how it is on a lot of NBA slates, but yeah, definitely tonight. So
okay, well then I will not be entering. Usually I throw in at least a couple bucks. I probably won't tonight. All right, well let's kind of dive into it here. It is a smaller slate, but we also have sort of a condensed show here. Lock is coming up on us here in about 27 minutes or so. So Kyle, do you want to lead us off and talk about the slate in general? And maybe do you feel comfortable giving kind of those cash core plays, or would you prefer to focus on tournament angles?
Yeah, I feel comfortable with that. Whatever works for you guys, I am totally comfortable with. I feel like, got a good grasp on the slate. But, in terms of, I think Squirrel kind of broke down all the injury news, which I think, obviously 4-game slate, not quite as much. But I do think from a cash perspective, the first spot everyone's going to look at is going to be this Pelicans team, just because that's where the biggest news is coming from. Obviously, Ingram out is the new news, but Zion also being out is going to change some things and kind of open up some pieces there. So on DraftKings, we have a couple of guys projecting very well. Same goes for Fanduel. A couple of interesting spots. I think CJ McCollum is going to be probably the first cash staple that a lot of people are plugging in. I think he's going to project pretty well. The matchup's pretty good here as well against Detroit. Last year with both of these guys off the floor, 32% usage rate for McCollum. So I think he's going to be one guy that instantly stands out from a cash perspective.
Okay, well, if you don't mind, by the way, you're getting some love on the stash in the YouTube chat. Big Hurt 828 says, I'm liking that stash. How long have you been rocking the stash?
It's been about a 2-week. It was actually for a Halloween costume. I actually have never done anything like this before and did it for a Halloween costume, and Chop actually named it the Flavor Saver on the Thursday night Showdown show last week. So I figured I would keep it and see how it goes for a little while.
And isn't it the thing like Movember? I don't know. You don't shave your mustache in November, so you might as well keep that rolling. I think we'll let it go until it gets fully ridiculous. See how it goes.
Exactly.
All right. Well, if you don't mind, could you go position by position? We like to start on FanDuel here because this show is indeed sponsored by FanDuel, as I mentioned. Make sure you're checking out all their fantastic promos over there. If you bet $5 on any money line, you get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. And all customers get a profit boost every day. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. That is a long read, but it's knocked out. Let's go position by position, Kyle. Where are we starting on a FanDuel build when you're looking at the point guard slot?
Yeah, first of all, well done on that read. That was impressive. Totally professional there.
I've nearly memorized it, which is terrifying because it's pretty lengthy, but we're working on it.
Yeah, well done. So at the point guard position, obviously, again, you can shift guys around, multiple position eligibility on both sides. FanDuel added that last year. So, you have a couple of flexible options, but at the point guard or guard position, McCollum is going to stand out there. He's 7-7 over on FanDuel, point guard and shooting guard eligibility. the RotoGrinders model has him for 37 minutes, nearly 50 FanDuel points. He stands, above pretty much the rest of the group of these guys here. If you're looking for tournament pivots, you do have a couple of guys in that range. Cade Cunningham, a few $100s more, but I do think from a cash perspective, Cunningham's going to be a guy that you want to definitely consider there as a cash option. And then, looking down the board a little bit, there's a couple of other guard options from the Pelicans. Dyson Daniels, 4K, he's a value option. And then, another value option on the slate, 5'8", point guard position. He could be potentially a cash core option. For shooting guard, CJ McCollum again, still over there. Jordan Hawkins is the rookie out of Connecticut playing over there in the Pelicans. He's been a fairly unproductive per minute guy, but he's going to, he should play big minutes here in this spot. I think the RotoGrinders model had him projected for like 32 minutes even before the Ingram news, bumped up to 37 now. So he should be slotted in there for, quite a few minutes. And again,
and that dude chucks, right? Like he gets his shots up, right?
He definitely loved to do that in college, and then last game he got a little bit more opportunity. 19 field goal attempts, not a lot of efficiency, 21% from the field, but he took 13 threes. So definitely a guy who will definitely chuck at times. For sure.
I love it. All right, how about shooting guard? Let's close out guard and then work our way through the forward, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think those are the two. From the New Orleans perspective, those are the main names there, and then up top. McCollum's going to be the guy for me. So those three Pelicans guys, those are the guards that I'm looking at. In terms of other cash options, you could potentially look at some of these Orlando guys who are pretty cheap, but I think from a cash safety perspective, the Pelicans guys just fit a little bit better. And then for the forwards up at the top, Kevin Durant, he's going to make some sense, but I don't know if he's going to be the priority spend up, but maybe this is a spot where you want to maybe take a stand on Devin Booker being out. It sounds to me that there's a better chance that he returns for this one. So if that's the case, Embiid's my preferred spend up option, but Durant is a little bit slightly cheaper option. So he could make some sense there as a cash option. And then a couple other names that do stand out. Franz Wagner, 6'5". I like him quite a bit today in that matchup against Utah. Herb Jones, another Pelicans guy, that's going to benefit with some more minutes here, 5'4". He projects quite well in the RotoGrinders model as well. And then Scotty Barnes is one of my personal favorite plays of the night. I don't know if he's a cash option that a lot of people will be on, but he's definitely one of my favorite plays tonight, 8-8. And again, if you're not playing Durant, but still have a little bit of salary with all these Pelicans sort of opening up a ton of salary, Barnes makes a lot of sense there at the forward spot.
Okay. How about big man? What do we got at center here? Looking at the teams. All right. Yeah. What do we got?
Yeah, I mean, it starts and stops at spend up options with Embiid, but you do have to sort of, value the fact that Valanciunas is here at 6'1", center option. He projects as the best value. Same deal for Joe Val, the way it's been kind of the last couple of years where the minutes are not going to be all that spectacular, but he can be very good on a permanent basis. So this is the first decision, I think, from a cash perspective, is whether you want to start with Joel Embiid, who is, the top projected play. He's a little bit more expensive than Kevin Durant, who's number 2 on that list. Or if you want to drop down for Joe Val, this is the first spot that I think you're probably, sitting down and making a decision for a cash perspective. Joe Val is the one that projects a little bit better on a point per dollar perspective and a value perspective. But again, I do think Embiid opens up, a huge ceiling here, and there's a lot of salary relief down the board at other positions. So I think Embiid is my preferred spend up option in cash games.
Interesting. Okay, good stuff. Let's kick it to Squirrel here. I saw you nodding in agreement many times, like a proud dad, like at the top, just like, that's right. What he said, that is correct.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, Kyle's on top of it. So yeah, it's difficult to get away from the Pelicans tonight. Like that's the big injury news. Is we didn't know if Brandon Ingram was going to play, but then Zion got ruled out like earlier in the day, probably like 2:30 or so. And then that just like propels all the other Pelicans forward. And then now with Ingram out, it's like just gets nutty. I don't know how many guys they even have in uniform. I mean, it's not like they're gonna have to find bodies out of the stands or anything. But all of the guys are gonna project really, really well. So is this?
Let me just pause you here. Is this one of those things where you're like, all right, this is the spot, and I'm just going so overweight on this game and on these plays that you can't outweight me, or is it? Okay, a lot of people are going to be here, so I'm looking elsewhere. Like, what is your overall thought?
I'll say I'm playing like more CJ McCollum tonight than I usually have of any player on a slate, just because like the Pelicans have 3 main guys: Ingram, Zion Williamson, and CJ McCollum. Like McCollum's frankly just priced as if all of them are going to play, but now 2 of them are out. So now if he's the guy that's left, like I'm not gonna. I mean, if he gets injured in the first quarter, I have to say it's just not my night.
Right.
I'm gonna count on people maybe overthinking it, and like maybe super casual people are not even aware of the news. Maybe like people that are super into it are thinking, oh, I'm gonna fade him for like ownership purposes. I'm just gonna play him. Probably gonna play him like 80% of my lineups, like which I don't usually do, maybe even more. One thing, but just kicking off the slate, it is like totally sequential. So game at 7, game at 8, game at 9, game at 10. So I'm just kind of thinking in my head, I'm only locking down the spots that I'm locking. Like I'm going to be late swapping tonight for my lineups because we should get just one manageable starting line, a set of starting lineups every hour on the hour, and I'll adjust then because there is some injury news still for that 8 o'clock game with Jalen Duren. We don't know if he's going to be in or not. That could affect things somewhat. And also, we want to see what the Pelicans starting lineup is. We know who's out. We don't know who's starting. And they haven't played a lot of Larry Nance with Jonas Valanciunas before. But the Pistons have a pretty big front court, and it's pretty big, especially if Jalen Duren is playing. So that maybe leads towards the starting lineup of Nance and Valanciunas, even though they don't usually play those guys together.
Right. But they don't usually have two major injuries either. And there's a lot of factors that could make it work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're more likely to see that starting lineup if Duren is in, because then the Pistons just have a ton of size.
Gotcha. Okay. You want to roll through some positions here on FanDuel for me?
Sure. So point guard, the top guy is CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum. I was looking at DraftKings for a second. I like Cade Cunningham. He's a guy I want to be overweight on. He's probably the guy I want to be. That's the second game. So I think he's a good pairing with all the Pelicans because that's the same game. So he's a good run back with all the Pelicans players. Jason Daniels is probably going to come off the bench, but he's been playing about 20 minutes. He'll shoot, so that's fine. Getting some Markelle Fultz, and then Tyrese Maxey is a guy in the first game, one of the few guys that I'm really interested in. Tournament play, if you want Dennis Schroeder, he's in the first game. I don't know if you want to lock that spot down, though. Shooting guard, again, it's CJ McCollum and Cade Cunningham. Jordan Hawkins has started the last two games. Kyle discussed him. 4,300 on FanDuel. Herb Jones has this curious shooting guard eligibility on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's small forward, power forward. On FanDuel, he's shooting guard, small forward. And then Devin Booker. That's the big injury question of the night. I'm probably going to be over the field on Devin Booker, especially in the 150 max, $9 or whatever. Just let the chips fall where they may. If he's out, he's out. But I think he's probably going to play. So right now, my lineups have more Devin Booker than they do Kevin Durant, and I'll adjust with whatever I can adjust to if I need to.
So essentially, if Booker is out, then you have to pivot to Durant. Is there any other moves really, or you're kind of locked into that if you go that route?
There's not a whole lot you can do depending on when we get the news, because in FanDuel, right, you got to play a shooting guard. So on DraftKings, I'm playing a lot of Devin Booker in the utility spot, and you can, I think, swap down Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, right.
And you lose a little bit, but on FanDuel, you're kind of stuck. So that's why I'm saving Devin Booker more for the multi-entry, because I could just be letting that money on fire. And unless I have multiple spots open, that I can swap around to. It's a big drop from Devin Booker down to probably Eric Gordon.
Gotcha. Okay, very good. Keep that rolling here.
Actually, Devin Vassell is there as well. He would probably be the drop down in the same game. Small forward, playing some Franz Wagner, playing some Herbert Jones, some Lauri Markkanen, like Scotty Barnes a lot. It's just if I assume Devin Booker is out, I get a lot more Scotty Barnes. So that could be something I regret if Devin Booker is out. I'm assuming Devin Booker is in. Kelly Oubre, again, one of the players from the first game that I'm locking into some of my lineups. Power forward is a little bit interesting, and there's a pretty big distinction between FanDuel and DraftKings. Larry Nance is, I think, power forward center eligible on FanDuel, and he's really cheap. He's 3,900. So he's much more relevant on FanDuel than on DraftKings. He also is a guy that'll get some steals and blocks, which helps him out on FanDuel. And then Isaiah Stewart, also from the Pistons. He probably gets a little bit of a boost up if Duren is out. And then center, the guy that I'm playing the most of after CJ McCollum is Jonas Valanciunas. And I'm playing some Jonas Valanciunas where I'm not playing Valanciunas at center on FanDuel. I'm playing a lot of Larry Nance. If I'm not playing either of those, it's going down to like Isaiah Stewart and John Collins. And I'm pretty under the field on Joel Embiid. Again, part of that is probably being over the field on Valanciunas and also over the field on Devin Booker takes up some of the salary.
Okay, excellent stuff. I feel FanDuel is fairly covered. We're getting in some questions. Kyle, we got a question here. Let me make sure I read this properly. From my guy, Butthole Jenkins. He says, Kyle, I need your feel it in my plums play of the night. Who is your dude? If you could say, like, I got one dude, I feel it in my plums. Who's your dude?
Yeah, I mean, Butthole Jenkins is always there for us on Thursday Night Football asking that question, so I appreciate him hopping over in the NBA streets. But I guess for me, it is going to be Scotty Barnes. I do agree with Squirrel. I think Booker's an excellent play, and obviously, if you hold on to Booker in your lineups and you kind of, have your hands tied later on in the night if he is ruled out, you could potentially end up regretting Scotty Barnes not having him in your lineups. And I do think he's going to be a guy who maybe goes a little bit lower owned. And I think with all the value that the Pelicans open up, he's one of those guys that just fit in the lineups pretty naturally for me. And he's a guy that I like a lot tonight. So he's been awesome this year, taking on sort of a new role, not only with Fred VanVleet out, but it looks like he's sort of overtaking Siakam for being that guy in Toronto. So 25.5% usage rate on the year for Barnes. His rebound and assist rates are up. So I like him a lot this year. And I think he might be a little bit lower owned than people are maybe intentionally wanting.
Okay, very good. Excellent answer. I do want to get your thoughts on DK, but before we do, we got to talk about Sims Lab beta. It's still in beta here, but we just dropped it. It's the beta version. It's a brand new NFL lineup building tool. And for a limited time, you can check it out for free. It's a brand new product. It generates DFS lineups through Sims. It's what everybody's talking about. The power of simulation combines data from every aspect of the slate, churning out lineups to match whatever preferences. I am kind of a DFS moron. I did this, I think it was just for like a solo game, maybe Monday Night Football. And first off, I won money, so that's good. Second, I cranked out a few lineups in like 50 seconds, like less than a minute. It was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. Just took a few clicks, and you can have hundreds of well-built correlated lineups ready to go for whatever contest type you're playing. So check it out. The link is in the description here on the YouTube. I seriously highly recommend you give it a look. It's our newest product. We're super stoked about it. And again, it won me money. So make sure you're looking at it. Steve says, hey, is Sims Lab going to take the place of Lineup HQ? I wouldn't think so, but these are things that are like way, way above my pay grade, my understanding. Lineup HQ is awesome, and I imagine that will stick around as well. But I don't know. We'd have to talk to Squirrel. You have a thought on that?
I think there is maybe going to be some integration. I don't think a replacement is where things are headed, but they're over my pay grade as well.
Yeah,
I imagine more of an integration, and I think we've integrated it with like some optimal percentages and stuff like that already. Okay. And so I think maybe stuff like that, not a replacement.
Perfect. All right, good to know. We've got about 10 minutes until lock. Let's dive into this DK build. Kyle, where are you looking? Is it the same stuff as FanDuel, or is pricing different enough that you've got kind of a slightly different build here?
There are a couple of different spots that you can maybe get a little bit different, or maybe open up a little bit more flexibility, because you do have the utility spot over on FanDuel. So if you're really high on Embiid, like I sort of am tonight, that's a spot where maybe it's a little bit easier to get him in cash games. But for the most part, a lot of the guys that we covered in the FanDuel section are going to translate pretty well. McCollum, Valanciunas, Hawkins, these guys are all up at the top in terms of the RG value rating in Lineup HQ. So it makes a lot of sense. Things I already talked about. McCollum, I think you're just kind of locking him in there in cash. He's even cheaper over on DraftKings 7-2. He is only point guard eligible, but again, you have also the guard slot. So plenty of room to work with there. Jordan Clarkson's a guy that we didn't necessarily talk about on FanDuel that actually projects pretty well on DraftKings. 5'4", shooting guard eligible. Pretty good matchup here against Orlando. He's sort of been, lackluster this year, but some of that has been due to blowouts. And this is a game with a 1-point spread. So I'm pretty high on Clarkson tonight. So I think he's definitely in play over there as well. Maxey is a guy that Squirrel talked about on the FanDuel section. He's up at the top in terms of RG value. He's going to play a ton of minutes. And especially if you're not playing Embiid, it makes sense to, for this team, for Philly, Embiid and Maxey, they take up a lot of the team's production and usage. So if you're not playing Embiid, you can maybe use Maxey and hope that it's a Maxey night and maybe he has the big production. But I do think for the most part at the guard position, a lot of the names that we touched on are the same. McCollum, Dyson Daniels, Hawkins, these guys are in play again over here. So I would say it's fairly similar for the forward position. Scotty Barnes is up at the top in terms of RG value, only 8.2 over there. He does have point guard eligibility as well, so a lot of ways to play him. Franz Wagner's up there. I think Markkanen's a guy for tournaments that I think is somewhat interesting. I think he'll be very low owned. He has the 3-point specialist, I guess, that he's kind of turned into in Utah. The bonus over there on DraftKings will help him. And then at the center position, it's pretty much going to be the main two guys there for me, with Embiid and Valanciunas kind of fighting for that spot. Larry Nance is also in play there for 3. And again, the utility slot kind of makes it so you can play 2 of those guys if you wanted to. And I do think Squirrel is definitely hit on the head with potentially seeing Nance and Valanciunas starting. And I do think that if you're maybe fading Valanciunas in tournaments, Nance is a guy that you would almost certainly want to consider for lineups. If it's a night where Valanciunas doesn't get the minutes or maybe he's in foul trouble, Nance is a guy that can definitely pick up some slack there.
Interesting. Very good thoughts. All right, Squirrel, kicking it to you for some DK thoughts. We also have some really good questions coming in. We have plenty of time, but just shout out. I think because it's a smaller slate, the people who are in here watching are like real hoops heads. So they're coming, like the questions are fantastic. So good job, YouTube chat.
Yeah. So on DK, I just think the biggest difference. Well, again, my lineups are totally dominated by CJ McCollum and Jonas Valanciunas. The Pelicans bench guys are all a little bit more expensive, so I have a little bit less of them than I do on FanDuel. I have a lot more John Collins and Jordan Clarkson on DraftKings. Like those are the 2 guys that are maybe a little bit better priced on DraftKings than on FanDuel. And it's much easier to fit in Devin Booker because you can put him in the utility spot, and then you have like more swap options depending on when we get the news. If he's out, we can go to like Lauri Markkanen if we get the news in time. Otherwise, like you can still go to like Victor Wembanyama, and you're not like losing as much as you do when you drop down from like Booker to Eric Gordon or to Devin Vassell on FanDuel. Let's see, just a couple guys. I'm not going to go position by position just because we're running a little short in time.
Sure.
A couple guys I didn't mention. Matt Ryan. I wrote him up in my article. Yeah, I think he's relevant on this slate with both Nance and Zion out. I will probably play some small forward for them. Like he's not great,
What was
super well priced.
Matt Ryan?
Yeah, and I tried a picture of the Falcons quarterback in my article.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just he's a reserve forward. He's actually been in the NBA for a few years now. But yeah, always a name that catches my attention when he's in the game. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like Jordan Clarkson is really the guy that stands out on DraftKings. Getting a little bit more Scotty Barnes on DraftKings as well. I think he's a little bit cheaper and some more Tyrese Maxey.
Okay, good stuff, guys. We've got 6 minutes until lock, and as I mentioned, we got a bunch of good questions. Starting as always in the RotoGrinders Discord. That's where the cool kids hang out. Just a handful of questions here. We'll start with Gamble, and we'll just bounce back and forth. Squirrel, I'll start with you. FanDuel GPP question: Pirtle and Cade or Nurk and Asar Thompson?
Yeah, like the first one was Cade and Pirtle.
Yep. Very nice. Ball says FanDuel cash. Kyle, you want Siakam or do I wait for news?
I guess that's a tough question to answer because it depends on who you have in your lineup for the news. But I think you would want to leave yourself some flexibility, wait around the Booker news. So I think you're probably better off holding off on Siakam and cash.
Okay, great. NBA DFS is FanDuel cash. Scroll back to you here. Franz Wagner and Barnes or Banchero and Siakam?
The first one, Franz and Barnes.
Okay. Chinatown says, hey, I missed the top. What was the news that we're waiting for? Is it just Booker? Was it? And we want starting lineups for some of these teams.
Yeah,
too.
So the Pelicans starting lineup will be important. Then Jalen Duren in the 8 p.m. game for the Pistons, and then Devin Booker in the last game in the 10 p.m. for the Suns.
Okay, very good. Kyle, back to you here. FanDuel single entry from Big Hurt, Embiid or J-Val?
I think I like Embiid here. I do think a lot of the field is going to flock to J-Val since the value opened up, and you can potentially use Nance as a pivot in the power forward spot. So I'm going to go Embiid, be a little bit contrarian there.
Okay, great. Scroll back to FanDuel GPP. Is fading the first game okay in a GPP, or do we need a piece or two here?
I think you can fade it. I'm not fading it entirely, because I like Scotty Barnes, I like Tyrese Maxey, I like Kelly Oubre in the starting lineup. And I have some Pascal Siakam, I think more on FanDuel than DraftKings. So I'm not fading it, but it's not insane.
But to be clear, you have how many lineups today? Like 150 lineups going?
Yeah.
So you having a piece of it is different from someone who's running 3 lineups, or one.
I will say, though, in my main lineups, I think on FanDuel, I do have pieces of this game. And I think on DraftKings, I only have Scotty Barnes, like my main kind of lineups.
Very good. All right. Kyle Manny in the YouTube chat says, if you had to pick one for single entry on FanDuel, you want Maxey or Cade?
Oh man, that's tough. I'll take Maxey slightly here. I think he's got a little bit more of a ceiling, and if you are fading Embiid, I do think it makes sense to utilize that and get some leverage to this, some exposure to the Philly offense.
Okay. Casey Douglas says, if Duren is ruled out, Squirrel, you want Bags or Nance on DK?
I think Bagley. I think Bagley's cheaper. Nance is more expensive on DraftKings. I think on FanDuel, I think the answer would be Nance. On DraftKings, I think the answer is Bagley.
Okay, very good. Brian Strickland says, Kyle, DK GPP, I'm looking for sub 4.5 value. Who's the guy that we talked about on FanDuel that chucked 19 shots and like 12 threes? Is he sub 4.5 on DK or no?
Jordan Hawkins is 4.6, so he's just excluded from that. I think the next guy would be Dyson Daniels, who could also be a good pivot off of Hawkins, who hasn't been all that good from a permanent perspective, and we have Daniels for about 29 minutes as is. So I think he's also a pretty good play. So I'll go with Daniels there.
Okay. Brian Underwood says, Squirrel, is Olynyk in play as a value piece in a FanDuel GPP?
I would go with Larry Nance instead. Like I was looking at Olynyk earlier in the day, and then like the Brandon Ingram being out kind of blows Olynyk out of the water because Larry Nance should get more minutes.
Okay, great. Swag with Chris is FanDuel. Kyle, you want Barnes, Siakam, and he didn't specify if this was cash or GPP. Barnes, Siakam, or Durant and John Collins?
I don't know if I love playing Siakam and Barnes together, so I'll go with the second pairing there.
Okay, we'll go to Jepst in a DK GPP Squirrel. How many Pellies is too many Pellies? And then on the high end, if you're about to say 4 or 5, are you running it back? Do you have to run it back if you're going overweight?
I don't think you always have to in cases like this, because what you're really looking for is the value, not the game going into overtime or anything like that. And I would say like 4 is probably good. I don't know if I'd go over 4.
Okay. You kind of just blew my mind with that simple explanation of like why you don't always need to run it back. I just assume I always have to, but if it's just strictly injuries and value and not like, oh, this game's going to be a shootout and everyone's going to go nuts, then you don't need pieces on the other side. See, I'm not good at DFS, so I don't think about these things, but it's always good to learn. I'm going to be damn good at DFS soon. I'm learning so much. All right, let's see. Did we talk about how many Pelicans was too many? I'm sorry. You blew my mind and I forgot if you answered.
I think I said like 4. With 5, I'd probably run it back.
Okay.
But yeah, I think with 4, you can do standalone.
Okay, great. Kyle, DK raw points. Do you like the spot for Maxey or Barnes raw points?
I think raw points, I think I give a slight lean to Maxey there. But I think it's very, very close.
Okay. We'll go to Brian Marshall, Squirrel for FanDuel and DK GPPs. Do you like New Orleans value versus Phoenix value currently? I guess that all depends on Booker.
I like the New Orleans value more. I think we have one lock in like 1 minute. Yeah. But also, I like the New Orleans value more because we don't know if we're going to get that Phoenix value, and the Phoenix value has been priced up from where it was earlier in the year because like Booker and Beal have both been out. So like those guys' prices have been rising.
Okay, very good. Dave says Maxey or Schroeder in a DK single entry GPP. Kyle, Maxey or Schroeder?
Maxey.
Yeah. All right. We are just seconds until lock. Hey, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button on this. This was excellent content, like some really good analysis by both of these guys. So hit the thumbs up. It's a free show, but we're trying to keep it free. And the more thumbs ups and eyeballs we can get on it, the more likely it will stay free. So the thumbs up is for you, not for me. Highly recommend you punch that button for us. And then as we have hit lock, there's one more note here. We've got our yearly premium sale still ongoing. For a limited time, you can lock in a full season of NBA Premium at a $50 discount. Everything from lineup HQ access up to the minute premium projections and ownership. Our projections team is ridiculously good. The fantasy pick'em tool for Prize Picks, Underdog, a whole lot more going on. Core articles, you name it. Squirrels hitting the nuts article, right? That's included as well. So make sure you are checking out that description in the link. How's the Hitting the Nuts the article going for you, Squirrel?
Good. I got to put a picture of the ex-Falcons quarterback in my article today.
Anytime you can do that. Yeah,
I said the indoors environment will be good for him. The passing game.
I need to read Hitting the Nuts more often. Let's see. I was just tagged with something here. Again, these are questions. Chinatown says, will NBA premium package include Sims when it eventually includes NBA? I have no idea when it will include NBA. If it will, this is all like, this isn't just a little bit above my pay grade. This is like outrageously above my pay grade. I have no idea. I'm here for weather and hosting some shows. So I don't know. We'll figure that out. We'll figure that out and let you know. In the meantime, let's see. Got a little message here. Yeah, nobody knows. Even people who are more in the know than me don't know. In the meantime, I think we're going to bounce. Kyle, that was fun, man. It was good to have you on the show.
Yeah, appreciate it. I had a good time, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Run it back.
You're back in 40 minutes, right? Like with the Thursday night?
Yep. Got the Thursday Night Football Showdown, and then after that, recording the college football show. So busy night, but I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, man's putting in work over here. A 3-sport night. All right, we're gonna bounce on out of here. I got some cooking to do and a family to get back to. So for Squirrel, excellent stuff as always. For Kyle, pleasure hanging with you. And for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we appreciate you. We love it. And we will catch you tomorrow. You have been crunched.